Thomas's presentation was a great segue into Santiago Ortiz Monasterio from the class of 2001. Yeah, make some noise for Santiago. Chogo, as he was known here in school. Chogo is CEO of GBM Infraestructura. GBM Infraestructura is a fund that invests in infrastructure projects, and naturally infrastructure is heavily geared towards energy, water management, and very large-scale projects. He has structured about $1 billion in deals, and the fact that the grid is connected is a great part of why GBM Infraestructura can invest in these projects right now. So I'll leave it up to Santiago. Thanks.
So I'm extremely thankful for being here tonight. When I was going through the slides, I thought maybe some of these will be a little bit too technical, but then I heard George's presentation, and I think we should be good. You rock, George. Go. So thank you, Nick, for the introduction. Basically, my job is, as CEO of an investment fund, is to structure large public-private partnerships in Mexico. So we invest in water, we invest in transport, and we invest in energy. Lately, everybody, I think, is fed up of all the negative news we hear about Mexico and the US, and the context is definitely not positive. But hopefully you can get some of a better vibe out of what is some of the things that we've done right as a country in the last couple of years. So you probably heard a lot about the energy reform, and bear with me because yes, it's a little bit dense. But basically, before the energy reform, you had the private sector could participate only in the generation through a self-supply scheme. What does that mean? It means that you would build projects for self-consumption. But now, after the energy reform, which I think is critical in terms of renewable advancement in our country, we can participate as a private sector, which our country needs capital from, not only because obviously we're in a budgetary constraint, but now you can participate in the generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity. We are going to see a fundamental change in the way that energy is generated in the country. We're going to see a lot more private investment as CFE steps away from a monopoly role. Because, again, I think the more competition you have, the better the things will get done. So how are things better after the energy reform? You basically have a couple things. First, the federal government has put out a very aggressive program in terms of when they want on the renewable-based capacity. So by 2050, 50% of the country's generation will come from renewable sources. But how are we going to do this? So there are two key aspects that the government has put forward. One, it's long-term auction. So CFE is buying electricity on a long-term basis from private producers. That gives us the opportunity to compete and develop more projects. So between last year through these auctions, more installed capacity will be built in the next 2 years than ever before. Secondly, all the big consumers of electricity in the country will now have to prove that at least some of the percentage of their consumption comes from renewable sources. How? Through a financial mechanism called CELS. Basically, it's a renewable energy certificate by which for each megawatt hour you produce, you get a certificate, and that has a monetary value. If you don't buy them, then you get a penalty. So the actual value of the cells will be based on the price of that penalty. So not only are we in a position by structurally as a country to develop renewable energy, but also technology is now key. So if you see these two graphs, on the left you will see that's the average cost of production for wind. On the right, that's the average cost of production for solar. So it's apparent that the advancement in technology in wind, it's building higher turbines with more efficiency. In solar, it's basically higher efficiency and lower cost of manufacturing. So now these technologies can compete against all others, against fossil fuels. That what makes them truly viable at the end. Because if we can get a healthy return as a private equity fund, then we're going to invest in these projects. So you have on one side a macroeconomic environment by which we want to develop the advancement of renewables, but where do we get the capital to build quickly all these projects that we have? Basically, the money is there. It's in all around the world, pension funds, in Mexico Afores, which are the savings of the Mexican workers, instead of being invested solely on bonds, can now, through also reform, can now be invested through private equity vehicles into energy projects. So you have a combination of where the Afores hold 20% of the GDP in terms of savings. And then you have it's a young country. 44% of the people inside the pension system are 36 years or less. That means that we have to create healthy pensions for these Mexican workers when we get out. And it's a perfect match because it's long-term capital with attractive returns. These projects are 30 years. So when these people end up retiring, some of that money that was invested in this type of projects will now give them a healthy pension. I'm going to show you a video. So this is a project we just finished in Tamaulipas. When we started out 3 years ago, everybody said that was impossible. It was an area controlled by the cartels. It was very difficult to get foreign investment. Anyways, it's been very difficult, but we finally finished the park, and it's got European technology, American partners, and it's in Mexico. And the most important thing is that we've hired 75% of local people living in those communities for well-remunerated jobs. We invest heavily in education and in health in all the communities that we develop projects in. So at the end of the day, what you have is a virtuous circle. You're putting to work money from Mexican workers on renewable projects that can, at the end of the day, will create jobs, will have a positive benefit on the local communities. We're extremely proud that we've developed this project. This is a project in Tamaulipas. We currently have another project in Yucatan. We're looking at projects all across the country in terms of renewable. The north part of Mexico, in terms of solar, is extraordinary to develop. So I think you'll see in coming years that the installed capacity of these type of technologies will be multiplied. Thank you for your time.